trying to reach my goals, got no time for mistakes. Yeah, I'm standing on business, need a big safe. Suited up, got the blueprint in the briefcase. It's go time on the grind, these are big stakes.
Broadcasting from the franchise Sidekick studio, welcome to the Sidekick Life. Get ready for stories of passion, problem solvings, and success from those living life on their terms. All right, we are here on the Sidekick Life, and just a podcast that I've been so excited about. We're here with Jeremy Miner, founder of Seventh Level, fastest growing sales company in the country named by Inc. magazine 2 years in a row.
My grandma tells me that.
Your grandma tells you.
Yeah, grandma told me we were doing good.
Well, she must be the editor of Inc. magazine then, because
Right.
that's where this came from.
Sure.
Just a huge following, 40 million views online every single month, and we have you here today to talk about Seventh Level and what you do. So if you don't mind, maybe just really quick, tell a little bit about Seventh Level, your company, and then we'll get into it.
Well, obviously we're a sales training company. So, we train, all the way from Fortune 100 companies to SMB, all the way down to individual salespeople that literally sell anything, including your industry. Your industry is one of my favorite that we train. And basically we train salespeople and companies how to work with human behavior rather than, if I could sum it up in a couple of sentences, how to work with human behavior rather than work against it. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about here in the keynote workshop today, for sure.
Because your background is in psychology?
Boring stuff, yeah. So I went to school for behavioral science.
Gotcha.
And had a background in like human psychology and what's called social dynamics,
Okay.
Just a crazy brain stuff. It's basically, how does a human brain make decisions? What causes someone to, if they see a sign that says go left, like what causes their brain to say go left? Like, it sounds kind of weird. We just kind of do things, but behavioral science really shows us why we do those things, if that makes sense. Why do we say no compared to saying yes to something? And so as a salesperson, once you learn that type of skill set, you literally have an unfair advantage over everybody else that's just kind of, winging it, throwing some techniques out. They don't know why they work or what. They're just kind of guessing. So when you don't play the guessing game, when you actually understand why they work or don't work, it makes selling, a lot easier for sure.
Cheat code.
Yeah, a lot more profitable. And what I always say is like, look, it's not just like, I always say like average salespeople think selling is like you against the prospect, trying to win them over so you can make money. But that's like what an average salesperson think. Like in our view, selling is collaborative. It's you working with the prospect to help them find and solve problems they didn't know they had. And like you said earlier, which I think was great, is how do we help them overcome that fear of change? Because they want what you have. They know they have some problems. It's up to us to expand those in their mind, and that drives more urgency to want to change. And we're going to talk a lot about like, why do we as a human being have that fear of change? And as a salesperson and as a company, how do we help them overcome that fear of change so they actually get what they want on the other side of that change?
Mm-hmm. Really good.
That's really what selling is.
Yeah. And you're great at it. So the whole premise behind the Sidekick Life is the idea of we are a sidekick to a hero, somebody that is the hero of their own story, right? Yeah. So we like to kick this off by asking you, like, who is your hero? Who do you serve, right? If somebody's got a problem and you're the guide of that problem, who is it that you serve?
These questions. So who do I serve as far as like
who's your customer? Who's the people that watch you? Who do you serve?
I mean, for me, like I love the companies that we train. We have a couple Fortune 100 clients. We have some Fortune 500, some big boys and girls. But to me, like at the end of the day, the reason why I started this company is for like the person in there that might have just got started in sales and doesn't really know what they're doing because they really weren't taught the right skills. Or maybe they're a vet and they're doing good, but they're like, how do I get to the next level? Like, so to me, I'm more about like the people, like the sales people, even though obviously that ties into the company because we get salespeople results, company gets results. But for me, it's more about the person, because if we as an organization can't help them learn how to communicate their message far more effectively, that doesn't just affect them and their company represent, but worse, it affects their potential customers, right? Because let's say if I sold, let's say your industry, like franchise opportunities, the problems that you guys solve for a lot of these people is they want to make more money. They want to have more time flexibility. They want to be their own boss. They want to write their own ticket, right? And they might have a job or whatever, or something that just doesn't give them that satisfaction. But if I can't help them overcome that fear of change, even though they want that, we as human beings, we become comfortable. We want to change, but we have this fear of the unknown. we might stick with something that's more familiar to us, even though we don't like it that much, over the fear of like, I don't know what's on the other side. Right. And so if I can't help that salesperson, learn the techniques that helps that person overcome that fear, their life stays the same.
Right.
They stay in the status quo and nothing ever changes. For me, I'm all about the individual salesperson, but also the prospects on the other side, because we don't view selling as something that you do to someone to make money. That's like very limited thinking. Selling is something that you are helping someone solve problems and get where they want to be. And if I can't teach them how to do that, it just hurts, I think, society in large, because, if there's nothing sold, there's no such thing as an economy. If there's no economy, there's no such thing as what we call society. So salespeople, in my mind, should have a much higher status in society than the low status they have. But that's primarily because of the techniques they've been trained cause people to run the other way, and it lowers their status. But I want, our vision as a company when we started this, 4 or 5 years ago, was to change the way sales is perceived in society. Not just here's how you make more sales and make more money, but it's literally how to change the way sales is perceived in society generally.
Tell me how you got to the sales part of it though. Like, when did you know I love sales? Like, just tell me like a little bit about that experience.
When I learned how to do it?
Yeah. You just right away.
So, salespeople always ask me like, how do I gain more confidence as a salesperson, Jeremy? I'm like, well, that's easy. Like, if you want to gain more confidence, you have to increase your skill level. Because how can you have a high confidence level in anything with a low skill level? That wouldn't make any sense. Because if I want to have more confidence and I gain more skill level, that means I sell more. And when you sell more, what happens to your confidence? It goes up. If you sell less, your confidence goes down. So to me, going back to the question is, my first couple of months, I've struggled when I got into sales as a college kid during college, selling door to door. That's where I started. And you'll hear some of that today. And it was just because the way they were training me was like triggering resistance all the time. Now, I didn't know at that time kind of what was going on. This is me reflecting back, right? Had I known, but I was going to school at the same time, behavioral science, and I was learning how the brain communicates. And I'm like, I got to interrupt this pattern that hi, my name is, I'm with XYZ company. They're like, not interested. I'm like, okay, how do I interrupt that pattern? And that started me on the journey of where, I got to as a salesperson in my career and where I'm at now.
Very cool. Solving that problem for salespeople, helping them understand you're not selling somebody, but you're with them. We call it being their sidekick, right? Solving their problem, having their back. Do you have any stories that jump out to you? Like, I love hearing stories from guys like you, right? Like somebody that was super resistant to your training or didn't think it was going to work. They applied a couple of methods and boom, just
oh god,
awesome.
There'd probably be a million. I was talking to one of our individual clients. So we had one of our live events about, I don't know, maybe 6-7 weeks ago in Phoenix, and her name is Anna Oliver. She's actually the #1 real estate agent in all of Toronto now. But when she started, she got into like it's a very advanced program called Advanced Inner Circle, and it's for individual salespeople, but they have to be at a certain level to even pay to get into it, meaning they have to start at lower levels of our training and kind of get certified and graduate into that, because it's very advanced. And I'm doing it in a group setting, and I believe we only let 60 people a month even join the program. And there's like a waiting list sometimes, okay? And it's, a little bit of funding they need to get in. So I remember when she got in there, she was already in like the top 2 or 3% of all of real estate agents in Toronto and Canada. And so when she got in, a lot of real estate agents are taught like, you just go in, tell them what you like, and you know how it is. Everybody, hey, I really like the cabinets, don't you? I really like the curtains. And you're sitting there like, I don't like the cabinets. So like, they're all over the place. And she would have to work so hard, like 60, 70, 80 hours a week, available all the time, open houses 7 days a week, and she's getting burned out. And I remember her on these Zoom calls, and I would say like, we do call reviews, and I'm reviewing her open house. I'm like, you see where you triggered that when you said, when you assumed the sale too early. And she's like, I don't really know. And slowly over week after week after week, she's like, okay, maybe I'm going to try this. And she'd come back, she's like, wow, that actually worked. She's like, I never thought that would work ever. Like, that doesn't make any sense why it'd work. And slowly after a time, she bought in, because she realized like, oh my gosh, even though I was successful, I had to work so many hours and I was burning myself out going through the numbers. She's like, now I'm working like half the hours. I'm getting 3 times the listings, and people are chasing me rather than me chasing them. She's like, this is completely different. So just kind of example, because I was talking to her back in a green room of like how, certain people sometimes you don't know what you don't know. Right. And so I would never say to somebody like, oh, you're wrong. That's not going to work. You got to do it my way. It's helping the person or the company that you're talking to, helping them start to see that maybe they have problems they didn't realize they have. Because if I go up on the stage here in a minute, I'm like, you guys, you're doing it wrong here. You're doing it wrong here. You got to do it this way. I'm going to get some people to buy into that, but half your audience is going to be like, well, no, I'm doing pretty good. Like, what's going on? So you're going to see in the first like 15 to 20 minutes, I'm going to get the entire audience to start to see that maybe, just maybe, they have problems they didn't realize they had, which will trigger them to stay curious and engage through that workshop.
And I can't wait to watch that transition, because here's where we are, right? We are at our conference, the Franchise Sidekick Conference, and we have about 300 of the most successful franchise development people in the country. I mean, they're selling hundreds. Some of these people are selling thousands of franchise opportunities every year. And a common theme last night when we kicked this thing off was they couldn't wait to see you. They were so excited to see you.
Now, is that what you say to every sales trainer?
No.
What's going on over here?
Yeah. It was interesting. You know, obviously we've got 4 people on the main stage. We're excited about all of them, but it was a resounding thing. And it's the influence that you have. It's what you've been able to do online and help people understand exactly what you just said.
Well, I love that. You know, even, I was in Europe for about 3.5 weeks, kind of a vacation / working a little bit. And I was in Prague, I was in all over Italy, and I was up in Poland as well. And everywhere I went, I would literally get stopped 5 to 10 times a day by people that were either clients or they're a company that we train their company. And so they're in our sales training, they're individual clients, or they're just following me. And I was like, wow, I didn't know we were that big in Prague.
That's
you know,
cool.
what's going on?
It's gotta be a good feeling,
but I was over there the year before, and I'd get some of that here and there. But even in a year, you know, when you maintain and you're always on social media all the time, because I didn't do my first reel on Instagram until January, I think, of 2022.
Okay.
I had
700,000 followers?
I had 0 followers on Instagram. I didn't have an Instagram account. And my daughter, she's like, you should start doing these real things on IG. And I'm like, we didn't even have a videographer. I'm like, well, I guess I need a videographer, right? I guess we'd figure it out, right? But like, if you're staying consistent like that for 3 years or 2.5 years like we have, people start to see you, because now you're recognizable. I see so many people that will start doing that kind of stuff and then just kind of fade out because they just get lazy, and it takes a lot of work to do content day in, day out. You know, we have 1 day a week where all I do is shoot reels and ads. That's all I do every Friday.
Every week.
Every week.
Yeah.
Week after week. Now, if I'm on a keynote Friday, it gets rescheduled to maybe a Thursday or a Wednesday, but every week it's content. You know, we do about 200 reels a month on each platform. Some of that, about 50 to 60 of those are intentional reels, and then others are repurposed. Maybe I'm up on stage in a keynote. Maybe I'm doing a training call on Zoom. And so when you stay consistent like that, your brand starts to be like, oh, that's the guy that's the sales training guy. Or these are the guys that help people, you know, mitigate risk when I'm starting a franchise. So if you just stay consistent after even a year, 2 years, like people start to be like, oh, those are the experts.
Yep.
But it's the people that just kind of do it here and there. Your brand is not going to be viewed the same way. You know,
that's so important to everything, especially sales. Consistency and just doing it over and over again, doing the little things. I mean, that's a huge lesson for everybody.
It's all the little
consistency.
nuances. Yeah.
So Jeremy, you said something that's a perfect transition. So you said you were in Europe.
Yeah.
You know, the Sidekick Life, it means 2 things. One, it's who we serve, right? We're a sidekick to people, so who we serve.
Yeah.
But then the Sidekick Life portion of that is when you're great at solving other people's problems, what's it mean for your own life, right? So many times on these podcasts, we talk about our businesses and we don't get a chance to say, well, what does it mean for us?
Yeah.
And so if you don't mind, I'd love to transition in. What does it mean for you? So who was Jeremy Miner before this before 2020 when you started doing your reels versus who you are today, like how you live your life, how your kids see you, things like that. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I mean, I had I think a decent sales career. I retired in 2017 and I took a year off because I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I started investing in real estate. Maybe I'm not going to do anything. I'm not sure. And people were like, you got to start a sales training company. Like, you really got to do this. And I started doing some like private consulting. People just messaged me on Facebook or whatever for a year. I didn't have a training program or anything. And it just kind of like, because I would see people like, you know, some of the sales gurus, I'm just making fun, but I'm friends actually with some of them now, but they would say, there'd be an ad on Facebook like, you got to say this, you got to say that. I'm like, man, if I would have done that in my sales career, if I would have said that or asked that type of question, I would have made like 95% less. Like, that's not actually helping these salespeople. That's hurting them. And it's hurting the end user, which is the prospect who doesn't get the problem solved. And so that kind of motivated me like, hey, there's this problem in the market, right? There's this avenue that I can jump into. Now, did I know everything that I know now? Not at all. Like, I was a novice as far as like how to run a business, right? So I went back to my former assistant at my job. I'm like, hey, I'm starting this sales training company. You want to come get a job? She's like, I'm in, you know. And it was me and her for like the first year and a half, and the first year and a half, I thought we did well. We did multiple 7 figures, but I actually lost. I spent more than we made the first year and a half. I think I lost like $600,000 the first year and a half. And I'm like, okay, we've got, a few thousand testimonials out of it, but I lost money. So how many years can I keep losing $600,000 or $700,000? I'm going to have to come out of retirement. And so at that point, you ever seen that movie, Field of Dreams?
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Maybe that was out there in Nebraska or Iowa, right?
Yeah, there we go.
Field of Dreams.
Yep.
I always get that saying, if you build it, they'll come. That was my favorite show as a kid. So that was going like, if I build it, they'll come. If I build it, now, I didn't know who was going to come or what. And ever since then, we just start attracting people and they come in and they like, hey, this guy's good at operations. And we went from, a company that had 1 employee to now we have 194 as of a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
And that's been in about 3.5 years, and so even in the last year, we went from like 105 to like 193. So it just, if you do the right things, you attract the right people and better people. And I don't, all of we have 50 some salespeople too. They were all once clients. Mm-hmm. Nobody comes into us that wasn't once a client and dominated in their field, which we really like, because they're bought into the methodology. But I believe you have to have a vision as an entrepreneur, but you also got to learn the skill sets. Because after about 1.5 years, I'm like, man, I am not the best CEO. Like, my passion is not running a business. I'd never done it, right? I was a VP of sales for a very large company and a chief sales officer, but that's completely different than being the owner, where it's your own money, and you're taking all the risk. And it was hard to try to run a business and train, right? So we brought in a great CEO. To this day, I love the guy, Matt, and he helped us take off. We brought in a great chief revenue officer, Marco, who's now our current CEO. Love the guy, like my brother. And we just took off. So the point is like, you want to bring in people that has strengths where you're weak.
Yep.
And you got to let your ego down to be like, okay, they're better at that than I am. Now I'm better at what I do. Like I focus on sales training salespeople, recruiting, stuff like that. That's my forte. But you have to bring in the right operations people, the right person to run the business day in and day out, the right finance team, the right marketing team, right? And so it just takes a while to build that. And I think a lot of us get impatient. We're like, we want everything now. I know I was. I'm like, why are we this big?
Yeah.
I'm still like that. I'm like, why don't we triple revenue tomorrow? Like, what's going on? And then sometimes, my CEO and our board will be like, wait a minute, if we tripled revenue, our fulfillment would break, because how would we hire that many people if we tripled revenue in 3 months? Like, and I'm like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We got to slow down a little bit.
Makes
So
perfect
it's
sense.
bringing in the right people.
Absolutely. So take that a little bit further. So you've grown the company. You're not losing money anymore. In fact, the opposite.
Well, my team has grown the company. I'm just the boring sales training guy.
Great. That's actually a really good way to put it. You're right. The team has grown the company. You're the boring sales guy. You're not losing money. You're making money. And so in your personal life, what's different? And maybe it's your home, maybe it's how you travel, but maybe it's also just a sense of purpose or how your kids see you. Like, what is different in your personal life now?
Well, one thing I love, because I have 5 kids, I've been married twice. I'm divorced, and I got married really young. I was like 21. That's actually what got me into sales. Huh. So I had a kid on the way, had just got married. I was 21, and I'm like, oh crap, I got to make some money.
Make money,
right? And like, who's hiring? Oh, straight commission sales jobs. Like, I didn't know what I didn't know, right? So it actually got me into sales. My oldest daughter's 23 now. She just graduated Arizona State University.
Congrats.
But what I love is my older kids. I've got a 23-year-old, 21, 19, 17, and then I have a 6-year-old. My older kids, they'll come, they've come to some of my events to hear me speak on stage. And I think when they see that, maybe I'm an audience of 5,000 people, like, wow, Dad actually knows what he's talking about. Maybe I should have listened to him as a young kid. Maybe Dad does have some brains about, how to handle your finances and how to develop skills. And, even my 6-year-old, she'll watch me on like Instagram, she'll get on her mom's phone and she's like, that's Dad, and she'll watch me on Instagram. So to me, it's really important in training your kids from the very early ages that, hey, whatever you want to do in your life, I don't care if you want to be a veterinarian, a sales trainer, a stay-at-home parent, whatever you want to do, learn the skills to become the best at that. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm talking about. Because if you learn the skills at whatever you're passionate about, I promise you, you'll always get paid the most. You'll always be in demand. So if your company goes under, you've got 100 other recruiters calling you, and you will write your own ticket and go anywhere you want. It's just when you don't learn the skills, you're controlled by outside things. Mm-hmm. You're controlled by, I always say, we train a lot in the mortgage industry. And our clients are like crushing it right now. But most agents out there like, oh my gosh, they're sitting on CNBC like, I hope the interest rates go down. Because if they don't, they're affected by outside factors that they have zero control in because they don't have skill. A lot of real estate agents are that way. But when you develop the right skills, the right sales ability, whether the economy's up, down, sideways, you're still crushing it all the time because you control what you put in here.
Yep, absolutely.
You can't control outside factors.
Yeah, keeping it going here. So, successful guy, you've done some great things.
Hey, I'm learning. I've got some friends that are way more successful.
That's all right.
than me.
We all do. Any splurges? Anything that you like? Anything that like hobbies? Anything that you like to spend some money on?
If you really know my personality, like the team does, like if you ask Yash over here and Nick, like I'm not really flashy. I'm not boring. I'm kind of like in the mix. Like I've got friends that have like, $500,000 Lamborghinis and, Ferraris. I'm like, God, they look like alien motherships to me. No offense. Like I love, like I'll make fun of them. Like, you got an orange Lambo that's $600,000. I love it. I'm more like, I like more luxury. So I'm more like, I've been driving, and it started earlier in my career. It did pretty well as a salesperson. So I kind of got all that out of my system. So now I'm kind of more like, like I don't need like that type of car, if that makes sense. But I've always been driving Range Rovers since like 2006. So every 2 years I get a brand new one. So I love my Range Rover, and I'm also a Mercedes guy. So every couple of years I get a different type of Mercedes. I have a G-Wagon. I really like G-Wagons. The new model that they came out in 2020 is way more comfortable. Yeah. I always wanted one before, but they're always like boxy.
No cup holders.
Yeah, right. Horrible, but now if you test drive them, they're gorgeous. Really nice, And now I'm starting to get into like Bentleys, like the not the sports cars. I'm not flashy enough, but the more long car. I like more as I've gotten older. I like to be more comfortable, if that makes sense. So I wouldn't say I'd splurge on stuff. I'm just kind of like whatever. You know
what you like and you keep doing it.
I like to buy, real estate and stuff and investment and those type of things. I like try to be good with my money and not go crazy.
That's great.
But to each their own.
Yeah, for sure. And what about the people you surround yourself with now? So prior to all the success, were you hanging out with the same crowd as you do now? Is it different? Did it open new doors that you were?
I think it changes. It's interesting because when I had my sales career, I felt like I had a ton of friends. But when I started when I started my own business, and I started to becoming more known, let's say in the last couple of years, I still kept my core friends, but those core friends were more the ones that were pretty successful already. They might not be a business owner, but they're like a top executive for a company and they're thinking big, or they're a top salesperson, like number one in the industry, and they're thinking big. So I've kept my core friends, but I started noticing in the last couple of years that every Christmas and Thanksgiving, the text messages from everybody else started decreasing, if that makes sense. Like less and less friends would reach out. Yeah. It's an interesting phenomenon. You guys probably already have seen that. As the more successful you get, and I have a couple friends. I'm good friends with the CEO of A1 Garages there in Phoenix, Tommy Mello, and he just sold half his company for, I don't know, hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever. And he's like, you're just going to find out, like when you become more and more successful, you're just going to have less friends, but the friends you have are going to have more of an impact in your life because they're going to help you get to the next level. So I'm always trying to hang out with people that are far more successful than me because I'm trying to learn. Like when I was back in Missouri before I put the company headquarters in Phoenix, now I was in like a small town, Springfield, Missouri. So not necessarily, it's a great town, but you don't have like a bunch of like billionaires just sitting there. Right. And so I was hanging out with guys that are like, 65, 75 years old that just were multi-millionaires, very successful. They were 30 years older than me, but I was trying to learn from them. And they were like my best friends. I was trying to learn from them because the guys my age were just kind of like trying to figure out life, Since I moved to Scottsdale and Phoenix, you're just around a different type of a person sometimes. There's some cities you're going to have more people that are like, I want to be more successful. Others that are just kind of like, just whatever they do. But I think you're going to have less friends the more successful you are, but they're going to have more of an impact for you in your life.
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
So this is always interesting to me. So well, first off, so we know that you've upgraded a little bit on the type of things you drive, the type of people you hang out with.
I don't know, but maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
About the same. I've had Range Rovers since like 2006, but are the Range Rovers more expensive than 2006? Yeah. Especially since COVID. I'm like, whoa, COVID. The Range Rover is like another 50 grand more. What's going on here?
That's right.
Go ahead.
So you got that. You got the people you hang out with are the types that you want to be like, right?
Yeah.
Tyler and Morgan, him and his wife are all super successful, very active. active. They do all kinds of traveling on top of all the things that he accomplishes here. So it got me thinking about this question. How do you manage their schedule with your schedule? How do you make sure that you're staying active there? You just travel to Europe for a month.
That's a rough one. That is a really rough one sometimes, because I have kids from 2 different marriages. Now, we're all there, like in the same place. You know, my son is still with his mom back in Missouri, but he comes out like pretty much every month, and now he's moving out there because he's graduating high school. And I was in Missouri until up about 2 years ago. So he's now moving out to Arizona because he's going to work in the company.
Cool.
So it's a tough one because you get pulled in different directions. And I think, as you guys know, as business owners, you've got your people on your team that want your time and attention.
Yep.
Like, hey, I want to go to dinner. Let's talk about career path. Let's go here. Let's do this. Then you've got your kids who need your attention. Then if you're dating somebody or you're married, they want your attention.
Right.
And so a lot of times, and you have friends that want your attention. So a lot of times as an entrepreneur, I think we get pulled in like so many different directions that sometimes I quite literally feel like I never have 2 minutes to myself where I'm just sitting there doing nothing. And so like I crave, coming home on a Friday night and like nobody's there. And I don't have to talk to anybody. And I just sit on the couch and I turn on like Ancient Aliens for an hour. And I'm like, this is the best thing on planet Earth. Like, I just want to be by myself. You know what I mean?
Yes, totally.
Like, I just want to be by myself sometimes. And I'm not an introvert. I'm not really an extrovert. I'm kind of right in the middle. But I'm just like, sometimes I think you just want some alone time to focus and just do nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
So Jeremy, we talked who you serve. We talked about your life. What about your future?
Yeah.
What does Jeremy Miner want for his future? What do you want to accomplish?
Well, for me, it's just impact on society. And I know that sounds kind of cheesy, but like that's really why I started the company, to change the way sales is perceived in society. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that while I'm still on this planet in the next 40 or 50 years, but at least I'm starting that conversation, if that makes sense. And maybe my team can finish that, or whoever is here. But it's just in the impact we have. If we can train, 5 million salespeople, in the next like 20 or 30 years, how to change that paradigm and their communication skills, we change, tens of millions, if not billions of consumers' lives, so it all starts, we always say it's, change the way sales are perceived in society, one salesperson, one company at a time. And as that's my whole goal. That's why we do it now. Do we want to make profits and stuff? Of course, we can't not make profits and stay in business. But the biggest thing with us is just getting more reach. We average between 35 and 40 million views a month on social media, which is good, but it's not where we want it to be. We want to get up to where it's 100 plus million,
Sure. Yep.
But we've got to stay, kind of targeted to our niche, which is, business owners, entrepreneurs, salespeople, coaches, consultants. That's who our market is, but we want to increase that as well and just really keep growing, and we've got some other things that we're doing. We're about to add in more of a business consulting model into our B2B training, because as we've come to a lot of companies, especially more companies that are in that like 1 million to, let's say, 60 million a year revenue range, a lot of them ask us like, we need help with marketing. Can you help us with our operations? Can you help us with SOPs? Can you, help us, run our finances? And we feel like we do a pretty good job of that. Are we perfect? No. Are we better than probably most of those companies in that? Yes. And so we're adding a B2B model in there where it's just not just sales training. That's what we're known for, but also other type of business consulting as well. So we want to have an impact there.
How did you know?
Personally, I like to have fun, man.
That's awesome.
I just like to come meet new people and just have fun.
How did you know when you were going to add additional streams, like different things? Like was there a point where you're like, I'm really good at this? Like, is there anything that kind of pushed you that, or is it just a need from everybody else?
Like the B2B stuff?
Yeah,
or what do you mean?
like moving into that.
It's just a need, like I think our team is really brilliant at recognizing what problems the market has, or maybe what problems the market has that they don't realize they have. That's the best place to be in. It's like Steve Jobs, like when he invented the first iPhone, it's not like people thought they needed the iPhone. They didn't even know what it was.
No, right.
So he identified in the market a problem that no one knew they had. And so I think that's what our team is really, really exceptional at, is identifying problems that the market doesn't know they have and helping identify that. And they're like, holy crap, wow, this is a solution for us. So I think as business owners, think like not just, hey, what problems does the market have, but what problems does the market have that they don't know they have? And when your messaging starts to shift that way, I think it opens up a lot of different things for you.
Yeah, makes sense.
Well, you've done a phenomenal job. It's funny. You say you have 40 million viewers a month and you want 100 million. I love it. I love that you always are thinking about what's
always trying
next.
to get better.
Part of that, I'm sure, is this book that I have, The New Model of Selling. So just real quick, tell us a little bit, who's this for?
Yeah, so it's, I wrote that with a co-author, Jerry Acuff. He owns a large sales consulting firm on the East Coast, great guy. Specializes more in the pharmaceutical, medical device industry, which are spaces that we train in as well. But Jerry and I wanted to put together a book that actually had training in it. As a young salesperson growing up in the sales world, I always buy a lot of books, not all, but a lot of them just were kind of very vague. They were just like, here's how to set goals, here's how to get motivated. Sales is a numbers game. It was just all stuff that really didn't help you sell more. And maybe you had to have a better mindset, but I was like, well, okay, I'm already motivated. I already know how to set goals. I just want to know what to say. I want to know what to ask. I want to know how to learn my tonality, to use tonality to get them. I want to learn skills. And so now there's just so much you can put in a book. You can't learn advanced tonality from words in a book, right? You can't learn advanced body language from a book. They're just words. But we wanted to put enough in there that somebody that read it could actually go out and use some of the techniques, be like, wow, that actually worked. I made a sale today because of that book. And that's a starter, right? Are you going to master sales reading a book? No, but can you learn a few things here and there to help you that lead to more advanced training? Yes. So if they want to get the book, they can just go to barnesandnoble.com, order off there. We have a special deal with Barnes & Noble, and they can always join. They can always follow me on Instagram.
Yep.
My handle's at Jeremy Lee Minor. Have them follow me at my verified account. There's 700-some-thousand followers there. So just those places, probably a good place to start.
Perfect. I'd highly encourage people to do it. I know our team loves the book.
Yeah.
We need to get you up on the main stage. So we're so happy that you were here with us today.
Thank you.
Can't wait.
And if they want to get more advanced training than that, obviously they can always reach us out to us on IG or our Facebook groups and always ask, and somebody will let them book with, account manager to go through training options.
Yeah, right on. We went through. Your team does a great job.
Well, there you go. I'm proud of my team. Perfect.
Yeah. Right on.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us on the Sidekick Life, where we highlight true sidekicks, entrepreneurs who've got their customers' backs, solve real world problems, and after helping enough people, get to live the life they've always dreamed of. We'll see you next time.